Good morning. Welcome to Hideaway Church. I'm Katie, and we are so glad that you're here this morning for worship. You can see that we have a special treat in store, so that's going to be great in just a little bit. But first, you have to listen to me, or you at least have to be quiet while I talk. You don't have to listen if you don't want to. I can't make you. We have two beautiful flower arrangements today that we're really thrilled to be able to celebrate two marriages in our church. And so these flowers over here with the yellow and the all different colors, these are given by Doug and Diana Shepard, and they're celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And then we have double marriage flowers. So over here we have some beautiful red roses that are given by Tom and Judy Haygood, and they're celebrating their second wedding anniversary. They were here in the first service, but some of you know them. We have a flyer paper that Karen was walking around with. She gave out to some people. We also have more of them in the back. Is that right? So if you want to get one. The deal is that for Christmas, we want to use poinsettias to decorate up here as part of our decoration. And so today or next Sunday or Monday or Tuesday this week, the office will be open. If you would like to purchase and give one of these poinsettias, you can do that, and you can actually fill out that form and give it in honor of someone or in memory of someone that you want us to celebrate or remember with you. And so you fill that out, you put your $8. Karen said you could even do that in the Dropbox if you're wanting to take that home and do it during the week. You could just put it in the Dropbox. But we need them back. We need all that done by next Sunday so that we can place the order and get the flowers in here and have it transformed for a beautiful December season. The deal is that after our Christmas Eve service on the 24th, if you've purchased one of those, you'll be able to take it home that night. And we'll also give you a list. Some people weren't familiar with this. We've done this before, but I'm just trying to explain it for those of you who are new and don't know. We've done this sometimes in the past. We will print a paper that will show all the people that are being honored and all the people that are being that the memorial was given for, so that we'll be able to kind of celebrate all that collectively. So you'll get that, and you'll see the flowers, and then you'll get to take them home. Okay. What else? We're having a Christmas concert. A lot of you know about it, probably, because we've got a lot of people that are involved in this, and so we're expecting a really big turnout. It is on December the 12th, and it's Sunday morning during what's going to be our one combined regular worship service time, which is at 10 a.m., but then it's also at 6 p.m. that night. We want to give two opportunities for people to see the concert. And then after the concert, the evening concert, we are going to have a dessert fellowship. We would like to ask you to bring cookies or some other treat that doesn't require people to cut it or do any of that stuff. And we're going to have a little reception in the Family Life Center, just so we can celebrate together the fun concert. So you can bring a dessert that night, cookies or something, drop it off over there. We have so many musicians and lovely people that are participating in this. Our handbell choir is going to be participating. We've got over 40 children that are practicing weekly and preparing to be a part of this. We've got the youth that are doing an amazing skit. Some of the stars are in here right now, and you are going to love what they're going to do. And then, of course, our adult choir. So it's going to be a super fun day. Mark your calendar for that and invite your neighbors. And I think that's all. So I'm going to let us get on to the really good stuff now.
That's harder than it looks. Isn't that nice? I don't know if you noticed, Dawn Ellen up there near the end plays 4 bells at a time. She has 2 that are turned this way and 2 that are turned forward, and then she will turn her hand and ring like this or ring like this according to which ones need to be rung. It's kind of like doing this. And I fill in when they're out, so I filled in for Dawn Ellen this week, and it was horrific. Dawn, I don't know if I told you, but I actually, one of the bells, and they're very expensive, you know, you can't even touch them to each other. One of them came off the table, down my leg, and I'm trying to slow it down so that it didn't hit the floor very bad. Yeah, so I have a lot of respect for what Dawn Ellen does. Well, good morning, everybody. Yeah. So this, y'all come on up. This morning, as we look toward Thanksgiving this week, tell me what you're thankful for. Just something that you're thankful for. Say it pretty loud. Coconut pie. Coconut pie. Very important. Are you gonna get some coconut pie? Oh, okay. All right. Good. Family. Health. Salvation. A job? You bet. Say that again. Being alive? You bet, Corey. Yeah. Grace. Jesus. Faith. The Word. If you didn't hear that, yeah. Bill said, Tim said, I'm thankful that we don't have a job. She's thankful that they do. Yeah. Health. That's right. So much to be thankful for. We're going to spend time today as we worship expressing that to God. Let's stand together. I've picked very familiar songs today because, and we're pulling back some on our voices because we just really want for all of us to be, I want to just encourage you to be the worshipers. And we're going to sing just one song. Lewis is going to come and bring what to me was an amazing message in the first service. If it's not, I'll tell you afterwards. No, it was really good at the first service, but this was kind of a dud. But I think it's a beautiful message. And then we'll have some more worship afterwards. So, Lord, we welcome you this morning to just draw us into worship and to remind us of who you are and who we are in you. To remind us of the story of what you've done in our lives. Let's sing together. I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. But it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise, treasures that fade, were never enough. Then you came along and put me back together. Every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better, you know it. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing again. Oh, there's nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Sing that again. You turn graves. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. One more time. You're the only one who can. One more time. Oh, there's nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. That's great. Y'all be seated.
We are in a season of Thanksgiving, and we have a date on the calendar that we're going to celebrate this weekend. We have to calendar things like that here in the States to make sure that we express gratitude while we sit around and fill our bellies and watch football and hunt deer and all those other things that people do around this holiday. I was reminded this morning in the early service when Mark asked people to say what they were thankful for, a guy right up here on the front, he said Texas, but it sounded like taxes. And so I was really pumped that he was real grateful for taxes because I offered to let him pay mine. He didn't take. Also, I figured something out, Mark and Kristen, since you're in the bells there. I've been thinking about a way that I wanted to get involved in the handbells. I love the handbells. So I think all it needs for me to get involved is a little more handbell. Cowbell. A little bit more cowbell, right? A little bit more cowbell. So then, this boy from Alabama could probably, even though I can't read notes, I could probably be involved in it. Anyway, we're in a series where we're talking about gratitude, and we've been talking about grace, because grace and gratitude, especially when you look into Greek in the New Testament, there's a dynamic that you can't separate. They're connected to each other. You can really see it when you look at the Greek words, and we took the opportunity to do that for a couple of weeks. And you can go back and listen to those because we're not going to get back into that particular part today, but I want us to see a story in the New Testament that probably just about everybody that came in here this morning knows this story well. You've heard it many times. You've probably heard it preached on many times. You've read it for yourself. It's found in the book of Luke, and we're going to look at that in a minute. It kind of brings it all to fruition, kind of ties it all together. You can kind of see how it It's a story that we find where some lepers interact with Jesus, and it shows this gratitude. It even goes to the point we've been trying to make, that all of this leads to the ultimate glory of God, and that is what really life is really supposed to be about for a believer, is the glory of God. And God is about his own glory, and that doesn't make him arrogant at all, because God can't be arrogant because he's God, but he is about his own glory. And us understanding, experiencing grace in our life, and being full of gratitude and gratefulness and being thankful for the grace that we receive, it ultimately leads and gives God the glory that he is all about. Feeling thankful and grateful is, for the most part, is universal. It's something that we've all felt, and I'm using that word felt, that feeling that we have of being grateful when someone gives us something or something, someone does something for us. There's not a single person in this room that hasn't felt that and knows what that feels like, and that's why I say it's, for the most part, universal. But here's something else that's true about us, and I don't necessarily know why it's true about us, but it is, and all of us in this room could probably attest to this. Oftentimes we withhold gratitude. We just do. Someone does something for us. Someone gives us a gift. Someone does something for us on our behalf. And oftentimes, even though we're feeling the gratitude in our hearts, it actually is an emotion that we feel. We withhold the expression of gratitude. We don't say anything. We don't express our gratefulness or our gratitude. And I really don't know the reason for that. I don't. So I'm not up here to give you reasons, because I don't know. But I do know this, and we all know this: few things sting more than ingratitude. Few things in our life sting us like ingratitude does. And especially, we all know this, especially for those of us that are parents or have been parents or understand the parent world. There's nothing that kind of stings you more than when you do something, you sacrifice something for your child, you give them a gift, and you see or you don't experience any expression of gratitude on their part. It stings, right? It hurts. You might not even tell them that it hurts, but it hurts. It stings. And here's the reason why. Ingratitude communicates, I don't see you. It communicates, I don't recognize what you've just done for me. It communicates, I don't recognize your effort. And it communicates, I don't recognize your sacrifice. Ingratitude communicates, you owed me, and that's why I don't see any reason why to say thank you. Now, that might not be what you're feeling at all, but that is exactly what it communicates. And the recipient, the person who is experiencing the ingratitude, they're always aware of it. So when you've done something for someone, you're just like me. When you've done something for someone, or when you've gifted someone with something, and there is no expression of ingratitude, you're very aware of it. You're just like, well, I can't believe they didn't say thank you. That's what's going on in your head. And you are experiencing something that you're totally aware of. But the culprit is not always aware of it. The person who is not saying thank you is not always aware of their ingratitude. They've just moved on about their life. They've moved on about their day, and you've experienced that as well. Unexpressed gratitude is experienced as ingratitude. And every one of us know that, whether we really talk about it or not. Unexpressed gratitude is experienced. You experience it, I experience it as ingratitude, because gratitude is the language of the heart. It's the language of the heart. And it's felt on a heart level. And so when it goes unexpressed, it's also felt by the recipient of you not saying or doing anything in return to express gratitude. It's also felt on the heart level. So if a person is grateful in their heart, but you don't hear it from their lips, now that's often true about us, right? So if a person is grateful in their heart, they have the feeling, they have the emotion of gratefulness, of thankfulness for what has been done for them or what they've been gifted, but it's not heard on their lips. What it does in our relationships in life, it creates a gap. There's a gap in the relationships, especially for the relationships we have in our concentric circles that are close. So our family relationships, like some of the people that we're going to spend a lot of time with this week. When gratitude goes unexpressed, it creates this gap. And the expression, therefore, the expression of gratitude, not the emotion of gratitude, they're different, and not the feeling of gratitude, closes the gap. And it protects the relationship. That's what gratitude does, especially for those that we're close to. So when someone does something for you, someone you're close to and you have a relationship, they do something for you, they put effort, they sacrifice, they give a gift of their time or a gift of their of something else, and you express your gratitude for that, it protects the relationship and it keeps the relationship in harmony. When we don't express it and we withhold it, it comes across as ingratitude. It expresses itself as something that we never intended, just because we have the emotion. They're feeling something totally different than what we think they're feeling and what we are feeling even in our own heart. And so what we're going to do today to kind of bring this to fruition and for you to see it in the Gospels is we're going to look at a famous narrative found in Luke's Gospel. It's not found anywhere else. It's not found in the other synoptic Gospels. We call Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John, especially the first three, we call them the synoptic Gospels because a lot of times the same stories are told from a different vantage point. That's why I love the Gospels, because they let you see the same story from the eyes of a different person. But this particular story about Jesus' encounter with the 10 lepers, which is probably familiar to most people in the room, is only found in the book of Luke. And in Luke's gospel in chapter 17 of Luke, that's what we're going to look at. So let's look at this story. It says, now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus being on his way to Jerusalem, with his followers, with his disciples, and there were probably a band of other people with him. On his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. This is at the latter part of his ministry, just so you'll know the setting. It's at the latter part of his ministry, and he is headed to Jerusalem. He's headed to Jerusalem for the famous setting of the triumphal entry, and he's about to get crucified and all that. That's coming real soon. So he's kind of etching his way toward Jerusalem. And it says he traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. And if you could see this on a map, you would see this as kind of a no man's land between a region that's primarily dominated by the Jews, which is Galilee, and the region that's primarily dominated or inhabited by the Samaritans, which is Samaria. And this is kind of no man's land. It's kind of remote. It's kind of sparsely populated. It's sparsely populated now, and it was sparsely populated back then. And this would have come to no surprise for Luke's first century readers when they read this, which were mostly a Jewish audience. When they read this, it was become no surprise. You want to know why it would come no surprise? Because this was not a route that they went on infrequently. Jesus and his disciples and other Jewish people, they frequented this route because if you came in the room today and you don't know much about Jewish history, let me tell you something. I think most people know this, but I want to tell you something. The Jews and the Samaritans couldn't stand each other. Okay? They didn't like each other. Jews didn't like Samaritans. Samaritans didn't like Jews for political and religious reasons. One step further than that, the Jewish people, they deemed the Samaritan people as unclean. So they went on this route to go around Samaria so that they didn't have to go through Samaria. Because there's a reason why they didn't want to go through Samaria. They didn't want to encounter Samaritans. They didn't want to be around them. They didn't want to come in their vicinity. They didn't want to get unclean. Okay, so they went around. So this would come to no surprise that Jesus was taking this trek with his disciples. We know from other stories in the Gospels he didn't take this trek sometimes. We know there's stories where he went right through, much to the chagrin of his disciples. They didn't like it at all, but he went right through and he met a woman. We call her the woman at the well, okay? But this was a route they took often, so this comes as no surprise that they're on this route, this no man's land, this area on the geographical map that kind of was nothingness. And then this is what it says, and he was going in the very next word, and he was going into a village. 10 men who had leprosy met him. 10 lepers. And I don't know what you know about leprosy, but people with there's still lepers today. We still have leper colonies today. But people with leprosy, especially in those times, they hovered somewhere between life and death. And I don't necessarily mean physical death, because here's the truth. They weren't actually dead, but they really weren't much alive either, because their life consisted from a distance. They stood at a distance and watched everybody else live their life. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that you stood at a distance and you got to watch everybody else live life, and your life is stuck in a remote place on the outskirts of town with very little to do with anybody else? And that was their existence, because in ancient times, leprosy was considered highly contagious, and their bodies would visibly deteriorate. And if you've ever read or heard stories about anybody who's been in a leper colony, even recently, you'll find that when they tell stories about people who didn't have noses, or their ears had fallen off, or different things like that, because it's true, that's what leprosy does. It visibly deteriorates the body a little bit at a time. And Jewish law, actually written into the Jewish law, it required anybody who had any skin disease, but specifically leprosy, to live on the outskirts of town in these designated areas where they would just try to eke out life. They would put them on the outskirts of town, and when they came anywhere near the town, they were required by Levitical law. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it wasn't probably just a Jewish thing. It was probably an every nation thing. Like the other nations probably had their own laws about leprosy and putting them on the outskirts of town. We don't have that in writing, but we know that's probably true. So when they would come near civilization, when they would come near town, they would have to shout in a very loud voice, "Unclean, unclean, unclean." And they were letting everybody know to get out of the way, to social distance. We know what that's like, but it's just to get out of there, okay? And they would come in, they had their mask in their back pocket. No, I'm just kidding about that. But they would shout, "Unclean." And consequently, what they did, these lepers that had gotten shunned to the outskirts because of their disease, they created their own small little communities. You would think they would do that. They clumped together and they survived the best way they could. They survived. They would eke out a farming community or whatever. They would try to grow their own crops, and they would just try to eke out a living on a remote border. And that's why it would come as no surprise that you would find these lepers in no man's land. They were out there in the land where nobody was living, because that's where they had been kind of banished, so to speak, in this in-between land, in between the Jewish land and in between the Samaritans' land. And they were surviving the best way they can. And I'm going to give a little side note that's really not a part of the message here, but I think it's worth hearing, okay? And it might be a separate message we do sometime, or maybe it is a message in and of itself. But at the end of this account, what we're going to discover, at the end of the story, and a lot of you know the end of the story, what we're going to discover is that this particular community of lepers was comprised of both Jews and Samaritans. That they were mixed. At least the story indicates that. In the story, because of the way it plays out, we get a great idea from Luke that this was not just a band of lepers from a Jewish descent, but this was a band that was mixed. Two groups who normally would have absolutely nothing to do with each other. I mean, nothing to do with each other at all. They did not like each other politically and religiously. But here's what this story can teach us that we already know. Pain, suffering, and affliction has a way of minimizing differences and maximizing what we have in common. When we experience pain and suffering and affliction, we don't give much thought to those things, do we? We just need each other. And when people need each other, those other issues don't make it to the front burner, do they? They don't. And there's something in the story that we need to see in that. That's just a thought, When you need each other, the things that divide you don't necessarily come to the front burner anymore. They go to the back. And this is what the story says. It said they stood at a distance, these 10 lepers, they stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice because they had to. They probably said unclean, but it says that they said this. They said, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. And they got his name right. Jesus, Master. Master was a name that usually only Jesus' closest followers at the time, his disciples and some of the closest followers used, but they used his name. They used that name because they knew his reputation, not because they already followed him as Savior and Lord, but they knew his reputation. And just think about this. They're willing to do anything because he's their only hope. They're living out there in this remote land, isolated with leprosy and never can join society again. And they're their only hope, so they're going to call him whatever they think they need to call him because his reputation preceded him. Because if you read the book of Luke, what you'll understand is chapters before this, he had already healed a leper. He had healed a leper by touching him. But he chooses to do something different here, so they knew his reputation because just like in today's time, it was no different back then. I mean, good news and bad news traveled real fast. I don't have to tell y'all what the latest gossip is in Hideaway. You already know. And it's not because Hideaway has their own news channel. Because your neighbor told you, and their neighbor told them, and their neighbor told them. And it just moves on. It's no different. Jesus had a reputation even among the leper colonies, even though they were outcasts from general society. And it's not because they were turning on their TV and watching it on the local news. It traveled. And the reputation about Jesus traveled, and they knew. So they knew, hey, here's our shot. Jesus is coming through our area. We're not real sure exactly who he is, but we're going to call him Master. Hey, Master, Lord, have pity on us. And that's exactly what we find them doing. And here's what Jesus does. When he saw them, he said, go show yourselves to the priest. Now, Jesus had more than one intent here when he says to do this, because this seems kind of strange. This is not what he did with the other leper. He touched the leper and healed him right on the spot. But he says, go show yourselves to the priest. And there's a huge indication that he's making here, and he's asking them to do something on faith. And he wants it to be about them having to express some sort of faith, because he says go, and he's making it, and the indication here, as you go, you will be healed as you go to the priest. And here's why he says this, because according to Jewish law, we can find this in Leviticus, according to Jewish law, with any kind of skin disease, if a person has been healed or cured from that skin disease after being in quarantine like these lepers were, according to the law, they had to go to a local priest and get the all clear. So even if all the spots and all their deformity was gone and they've been cured, a local priest has to sign off on it, so to speak. You know, kind of like we live in 2021, where you got some, you know, you go to anywhere now and you got to get the all clear before you can come back into normal society. You know, if you go to a foreign country now and you come back into the United States, you got to get the all clear. Okay? You go to their country, you got to get the all clear. That's the same thing that was going on here. And so Jesus knew that. He knew they had to get the all clear, so he's telling them, go and on your way to the priest, obviously you're going to be cleansed. That's what he's saying. And amazingly, they do that. They just obey. And it's an extraordinary amount of faith that they're having here. The other implication that we can see, and the other thing Jesus had to have in mind, is this. If one leper showed up, having been healed, to the priest, I mean, it would have been a big deal because it would have been a miracle. But when 10 lepers show up at the same time, what's that priest going to do? Hey, tell me the story. The priest is going to want to know the story, right? Because that's a very unusual thing for 10 people to show up at the same time saying, we've been healed of leprosy. And it would have been an extraordinary miracle in which the priest would have wanted to know, tell me the story how this happened. And it would have been about Jesus' reputation, because listen, Jesus' reputation was beginning to grow and grow and grow as he moved toward Jerusalem. And that is exactly why when he moves toward Jerusalem, what we see when he enters, what are they doing? They're throwing palm branches at his feet, and they're saying, here comes the king. Because by the time he gets there, his reputation is enormous. Was it because he was on CNN or Fox? No, his reputation was enormous because of stories like this. Because who do you think that priest went and told? He went and told the other priest. Hey, you know, while you were sleeping today, or while you were on a shift at another place where I was today, 10 guys come in here and they've all been healed, and they tell me Jesus did it. And his reputation was just absolutely exploding as he moved toward Jerusalem. And that's why by the time he gets there, I mean, it's a party parade. It's a party parade because the king is entering into the kingdom city. And so it's things like this. And Jesus, he had that in mind as they were going to the priest, as well as them expressing their own faith that he could actually cleanse them, and them walking towards that. And Scripture says this in verse 14. It says, as they went, they were cleansed. So you get that picture in your mind, that mental picture. As they went, spots on their arms and legs and face, they're beginning to watch them go away. What a cool picture. They're beginning to watch them go away. And then there's a twist in the story. I say there's a twist in the story, and it doesn't come across as a twist to most of us because we know how the story ends. But imagine if this was the first time you read the story. And imagine for the first century readers who are reading this Gospel of Luke, this is not how they see the story going when there's a twist in the story. And it says this in verse 15. It says, one of them, when he saw he was healed, and I'll challenge you to look at that word in the Greek. It's a great little Greek word that means something totally different than cleansed. And we don't have time to go over it now, but look at it in the Greek. You can through the internet. You can look at any Greek word through the internet. Look at that one. When he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. No more social distancing. He saw that he was healed. He turns around, he comes back. He threw himself at Jesus' feet, and he thanked him. He praised God in a loud voice, and he thanks him. No more social distancing. Listen, he was not content to feel grateful, to feel and have the emotion of gratefulness. He had to express it. And he went back to thank the one. Listen to this. He went back to thank the one who enabled him to move forward in life, because lepers didn't see life as moving forward. And he went back to thank the one who enabled him to be forward. And the next sentence that Luke pens, he probably had to be maybe chuckling when he said this, but it gives a huge indication to why we know more about this story. And Luke says, and he was a Samaritan. Huge implication there. The other 9 weren't. The other 9 weren't. They were Jews. And this man, this Samaritan man, had experienced alienation and discrimination on multiple levels his whole life, and not just because he was a leper. And so he had just experienced something, and he was extra grateful because he had just experienced an enormous amount of grace in his life. And the detail really comes to light when you take the entire book or the entire gospel that Luke wrote. Because when you read Luke's whole gospel, what you begin to see is over and over and over in Luke's gospel, he highlights Jesus' encounters with outsiders. He highlights Jesus' encounter with outsiders. And that should be great. You should love the book of Luke in this room. You know why you should love the gospel of Luke? It's because you're an outsider. And I'm an outsider. And he emphasizes Jesus' encounters. He emphasizes Jesus' graciousness to outsiders. And that would have not been what a first century Jew who was reading Luke's gospel would have ever expected. They would have never expected the story to be like this. Because they would have expected for Jesus to be just like them. To not have anything to do with outsiders. To avoid outsiders. That grace was something for Jews. That it wasn't for anybody else. And over, it's outsiders in Luke's gospel that express the most gratitude. Over and over again, read it. They express the most gratitude. And then Jesus finishes the story by saying this, and we know how this ends. It says, Jesus asked, were not all the 10 cleansed? Were not all 10 cleansed? It's like, he's not asking for them to answer his rhetorical questions. Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except who? This foreigner. This person that you guys would have said never even needed to experience grace from me to begin with. See, he seems baffled by it, even though we know he's not. He's Jesus, he's God. They didn't express it. They didn't express it. And I know what you think every time you read this story, because you think like me. And you judge those 9, don't you? That's what's going through your head right now. I can't believe they didn't come back. How ungrateful those 9 lepers were that didn't come back. I know, because that's the way I read it. But hey, don't be so harsh on them. Because here's what I believe. I believe that when they walked out of the temple and they had met with the priest and the priest had given them all clear, if you and I would have been there and we had looked at any one of these 9 lepers and asked, hey, why didn't you say thank you? Are you not grateful? They would have went, what do you mean am I not? I'm very grateful. I'm extremely grateful. I just got my life back. I mean, I get to go see my family again. I get to go see my kids again. I get to go hang out with my wife or my husband again. I get to go hang out with my friends again. Of course I'm grateful. I feel totally grateful. They just didn't express it. And oftentimes that's how we are. It's not that we don't feel that way. It's not that we don't have the emotion of feeling thankful. It's not that when someone does something that we well up on our insides. It's not that we don't have that. We do have that. But just like I said at the beginning, unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude, whether we intended it or not. Unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. Our feelings don't count because our feelings don't connect. What you feel is not what connects you to someone. What you express is what connects you. If you feel like you love someone and you never tell them you love them, what do you think they're thinking? Oh, they really, really love me. No, that's not what they're thinking. That's what you're thinking. And that's what you're feeling. You just never express it. And that's one of the things we need to learn out of the story. The gratitude we feel but don't express is felt by the other person as ingratitude. We feel grateful, they feel unappreciated. Those other 9 lepers, surely they were grateful. They got their life back. But we see Jesus saying, where's the other 9? Where are they? Ingratitude feels like rejection. It just feels like rejection. Our hearts gravitate towards acceptance, and over time, ingratitude, when we do things for people, when we give and we sacrifice and we make effort in our life and we get no response back over time, it just feels like rejection. And unexpressed, here's the last thing, and we're going to kind of wrap this up, but unexpressed gratitude may indicate an inflated view of self. Oftentimes, that's what it means. We just have a really high view of ourselves. The message of ingratitude is, I could have done this without you. That's what it says. I don't owe you anything because I could have done this without you. Isn't it true that arrogance and ingratitude are generally found under the same rock? They're found under the same rock. Arrogant people are usually ungrateful people, and ungrateful people usually come across as arrogant. Isn't that true? We know that. We experience that. And so I'm going to ask you a question. We're going to come up here and worship. I want to say a little thing about worship as they come up here. But listen, I want to ask this question because we're moving into the calendar time to show gratitude. It's on our calendar. You have to do it this week because it's calendared for you. Here's the question we all need to ask, and this steps on my toes even as I say it. Is expressing gratitude difficult for you? Is it difficult for you? Are you more comfortable pointing out how something could have been better? Uh-oh, I just hit some people in the room, I know. Are you more comfortable pointing out how something could have been better than recognizing how good it actually is? Gratitude is an expression of experienced grace. And when we understand the grace that has been expressed to us, it should result in us expressing gratitude to God. And when we do that, it brings Him glory. That's why church, one of the many reasons church is so important, is because church gives us the opportunity to express gratitude through this form that God created called music. That's what praise and worship is. It's not saying, oh, I feel great about you in my heart, God. I'm going to take what I feel in my heart, the emotion that I feel, and I'm going to express it with my lips. So when you sit in a worship service and you don't sing, well, nobody else around you is going to be able to tell that you have anything going on in your heart. Now, you might not sing with a joyful noise, but it's a joyful noise in the rich harmony as it goes up into the very ears of God, and he gets glory. And in turn, when we take the relationships God has honored us with in life, and we don't just have gratitude in the emotions and feelings of our heart, but we express it, and you might have the opportunity this very week to express it. When we express gratitude with our lips to the people that we love and care for and around us, it brings glory to God Almighty. So use your lips, not just your heart. Who helps you move forward? Have you expressed it to them? Have you said something to someone that lets them know how you feel? Because if you don't, let me tell you this, it leaves them feeling in a way you never intended for them to feel. It leaves a gap. Close the gap. And when we worship, it's not just to fill time. When we come in here and we corporately, it's not just to fill space. It's not just to check it off of a list. It is our heart's expression to a holy God because he's been so gracious to us and we don't deserve it. So let's worship.
I love you, Lord.
Let's stand together. Let's sing this.
Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Let's sing it out. All my life.
All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest nights. You are close like no other, and I've known you as a father, and I've known you as a friend. Oh, I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Your love is devoted
Like a ring of solid gold,
like a vow that is tested, like a covenant of old. Your love is enduring through the winter rain and beyond the horizon, with mercy for today. Faithful you have been, faithful you will be. You pledge yourself to me, and it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. You father the orphan, your kindness makes us whole. You shoulder our weakness, and your strength becomes our own. You're making me like you, holding me in white, bringing beauty from ashes. You will have your prize, free of all her guilt, rid of all her shame, known by her true name. And it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, never be on my lips. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. And it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Just under your breath, would you just express your praise to God in your own words, your thankfulness? Maybe think about tough times that God has brought you through, maybe even things that nobody else knows about, but that God has brought you through. And would you say, just say, God, I thank you. I thank you that you were there, that you never left me or forsake me. Just take a minute and express it in your own words under your breath. You will be praised. You will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised. You will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you. Sing that again. You will be praised. You will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised. You will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. And it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Lord, especially through the difficult times, teach us to give you praise. Through the good times, through the bad times, to trust who you are, regardless of what we see or what it seems like the circumstances are. Help us, Lord, to express it to you. We know in the process it grows, it wells up inside of us deeper. We have a deeper knowing and a deeper faith when we express it. And Lord, this week, help us to express our thanks and our praise and our love to the people that are around us that we love. Help us to say it with words. Help us to see what a gift they are, what gifts we have around us this week. Let it be a good break, a good time to stop and to be thankful. And we pray it in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Y'all have a great week.